Alright guys, it's Chatterbox Reviews, coming at you guys with my review for Better Call Saul, Season 4, Episode 6. So again, another great episode this week for Better Call Saul. Again, another kind of slow-paced episode until like the very end, I would say. Yeah, so slow-paced a little bit. Last episode was pretty slow-paced as well, but still very enjoyable, right? I think that's the main thing here is Better Call Saul is a slow-paced show, right? So that's just something that we all, have gotten used to that are fans of this show. And so to expect something else, is, not the right thing to do, I would say, because you kind of just have to go with the flow. And I think it's really enjoyable. I mean, I've seen a lot of other people, though, saying how it's boring, it's too slow for them and stuff. But honestly, this is how the show has been for 4 seasons. It's not like this is something new in season 4. Maybe a little bit because of Chuck's death, with a little bit of stuff like the first, maybe 1 or 2, 3 episodes of this season have been maybe a little bit slower than others in other seasons. But other than that, I would say this season has been just like any of the other ones. It has been really good, for sure, but, the same pacing as other seasons. So, anyway, so yeah, I did think that this episode was better than last episode, though, just because of mainly this stuff at the end of the episode, which was amazing. I loved it. So yeah, we'll talk about that. So we'll go through a little bit of a recap here of the episode, talk, in depth about things, talk about different sequences and stuff like that. And then we get to my rating, favorite character, and then some more overall thoughts of the episode. Do want to talk about the ending, of course, favorite part of the episode. Just going to tell you that now. So, yeah, it was great. And this beginning was also really, really great. So I'm really enjoying this season. I'm looking forward to the next 4 episodes, and I'm really happy to be reviewing it, each week. So anyways, please stay tuned for weekly reviews here on the channel for Better Call Saul. I'll be going right up to the finale. So yeah, stay tuned. But anyways, so we start off this episode here with a flashback. So last episode we started off with what some would call a flash forward, but some may call it a flashback, right? Because it was kind of in between, the end of Breaking Bad and where we are in Better Call Saul. So kind of in between there, but we got a scene where, Saul Goodman, we saw Saul now, in Better Call Saul. Who would have guessed? But anyway, so we saw that last episode, and in this episode, they gave us another kind of flashback. Well, this is a flashback, but the last one, interpretive, in as a flashback or a flash forward, but they gave us another one of those this episode, and I was a little bit surprised. I thought, oh well, that's only for the episode 5, kind of halfway through the season they were going to give us something, but they actually give us another flashback this week, and I thought it was really well crafted to make the rest of the episode kind of stand out as well. So I thought it was great. So there's flashback here is to Jimmy and Kim as mailroom workers. I think that, they're not in the mailroom in this scene, but I do think that that's kind of what's implied here. Kim's still going through law school. I'm not sure about Jimmy. I'm not sure if he's in law school at this point or not, but it seems like they're both working in the mailroom, and that's how they got to know each other, right? So, and I'm not sure if that was been explained before. So this may have been actually our first scene looking at how they met. Right, Kim and Jimmy. So, and again, I'm not sure if that's been explained yet, but if it hasn't, this is a pretty big, significant scene in showing that how they met and how they started, interacting with each other, at Hamlin Miguel. So yeah, so we knew that they were from, HHM together, but we didn't know quite the extent. So, yeah, so that was really cool, right? It was very interesting. So then we see that Kim is very ambitious and knowledgeable at this point, right? So, her and Jimmy are pretty much, polar opposites here, right? Because Jimmy's more worried about this Oscar pool contest that he's running here, taking people's money and putting their guesses into a kind of like a fantasy league, but for the Oscars, right? So he's organizing this whole thing, and he seems more concerned about that than any of the law stuff that's going on, right? On the other hand, while Kim, that's all she's focused on, right? And then, Chuck arrives, right, during their little conversation there after this big win right? And so, of course, Kim is focused on that and just talking about that, and Jimmy doesn't really have any idea what's going on, right? So you definitely see the difference between these two characters, and I really feel like that plays out in this episode too. Kind of the ambition for Kim and Jimmy kind of being left out and not really, knowing or interested in the same, concepts that Kim is. Even though they're both lawyers too, like we got to remember that, right? They're both lawyers, right? But in totally, different avenues that they've taken in their lawyers, in their law career. So anyways, it was great to see Michael McKean again. He did come back. I wasn't sure if he was going to, because I thought by now we would see a flashback of him, but he is back, so it was great to see him again in this episode. So he, of course, reprises his role of Chuck. So Chuck does arrive at the office here, and they did a good job of making him look a little bit younger too. I did appreciate that, the steps they took in doing that. So he arrives after this big win, apparently. That I guess he won this banker case or something like that, getting a guy back his shares or something. And so anyway, so then he comes over to Jimmy, and then Kim tries to impress him, right? And says oh, this and this, and asks him a question about it and all this. So she's really knowledgeable about it. She's kind of obsessed with everything that's going on, and we see Jimmy in this scene again, not very interested in what's happening. Now I'm not sure if it's just his brother and he doesn't really want to, well, he says congratulations, but it doesn't seem sincere, in the scene. So I'm not sure if it's maybe, just his brother. He doesn't want to be, too sincere with his brother, or is he just actually not really interested about the situation? Which I think it's the latter, right? But it could be both, right? So anyways, he just doesn't seem very interested in it. He doesn't seem to know exactly what's going on. Again, he's more worried about this Oscar pool stuff, right? So again, we just get the idea that Jimmy wasn't always, interested in this law stuff. And I think Chuck was the one who kind of pushed that on him, right? And so at this point, he's not where he is now, that's for sure, right? With his, with his interest in law. But I did really like this point that Jimmy said, "That'll be you soon," to Kim, right? After Chuck kind of walks away and they're kind of admiring him as this, famous figure in the firm, right? After he just got this big win, and Jimmy says, "That'll be you soon." So he recognizes that Kim is way, above him, way past him, and that she has the chance and the opportunity to become what Chuck is, right? And he doesn't really, right? Like that's not really what he's going for. So anyways, I did really like this flashback. It was kind of, a quick one. It wasn't too long, but it was very effective. It was really good. And like I said, it does play a part later on in the episode, I think, because, with this scene, I don't know if you heard that, with this scene in the beginning, they're essentially building all this tension for the rest of the episode with their relationship between Kim and Jimmy, up until that scene with, Kim going to the other firm. So I'll get to that, just in a few minutes. But anyways, so really great flashback scene at the beginning of the episode. So then we see Jimmy tells Kim, so they're waking up in the morning, I guess, and Jimmy tells Kim that he decided not to go to see the therapist and that he's on a good path right now, right? He's got this job, right? He's got this job, he's staying busy, he knows what he wants to do, and he thinks, because of that, he doesn't need to go see this, well, he calls him a shrink, right? But then he doesn't need to see this therapist, right? And so he does say as well, he's moving forward from Chuck's death. He thinks going to the therapist and talking about it is just going to be, recalling that past and talking about it, while he wants to move forward, he wants to move on. And so I definitely, understand that. I think Jimmy, that's exactly what he's trying to do. He's trying to distance himself from it. But I think in the next 4 episodes, is there only, 7, 8, 9, yeah, so there's 4 more episodes. So I think in one of those episodes, I think we're going to see him break finally, and I think he's going to, finally kind of come to grip, what has actually happened to his brother. Because I don't think he's realized that yet. I don't think he's come to terms with it. So I do think we're still going to see that, but right now he wants to move forward, right? And he says, he's on a good path and stuff. But is he actually? I mean, I don't know, right? I mean, maybe he's doing the best he can with a suspended license, right? Obviously, he wants to practice law, but he can't. So, yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, is he actually on the right path? I don't know. I mean, I guess you could argue that. I don't know. I guess that's up for debate, really. If he's on that path, but his job, it pays. He says, it's a job, right? So, it is what it is. There. I mean, just because it's dead and he's not really doing much, it's still a job. So, yeah. Anyways, so then we go away from Jimmy for this one, and then we go straight to Kim. So Kim actually, and she has a pretty big part in this episode too. So she goes to Schweikart and Coakley to meet with Schweikart. So we have seen this firm in the past, in season 3, I believe, when she gave Gatwood Oil, that client, where it wasn't, I think she was doing something for Gatwood Oil, and that's how she got in that car accident at the end of season 3, right? So she gave them that big oil client, right, to this firm, and so they kind of are in debt to her a little bit, or at least they kind of owe her a favor for her letting them take it like that, and so yeah, so that's just a little bit of background there. If you didn't know that, might be a little bit confusing, right? But anyways, so she goes and meets with Schweikart. Now, she did give his name, but I forget it. But anyways, and so she meets with him, and she asks him if they want a banking division at the firm, right? And, do they want to develop one? And then you can kind of see already that she's getting to the point where she wants to join it, or she wants to run it. So she's looking for a job when she's already under Mesa Verde. We've seen a little bit of that difficulty last episode, though, in her kind of balancing Mesa Verde, not, giving them a priority over, the pro bonos that she started doing, right? So just kind of an odd situation here, and it seems as though now she's open to get a job at Schweikart and Coakley. So, of course, this comes a little bit, this comes back later on, but right now, that is it. So we see Mike goes with Gus to check out the living accommodations, right, for the workers who are going to build this underground lab, right? So it turns out they did go with that guy that we saw last episode, the German guy, and so they're going to come and build this underground lab, right? And but they need somewhere to stay, right? Because it's going to be 6 months. Mike thinks it's going to be 10 months. If he tells, he said, if he tells us 6 months, it's going to be 10, right? So he thinks it's almost a year, pretty much, in how long it's going to take to build this. So they need some sort of living accommodations for these men who are coming, right? And so it's very interesting to see all these things that they must do to keep anyone from finding out, right? I mean, or everyone from finding out. Because they have to do this all secretly, right? They can't let any members of the public find out what they're doing, or else people are going to start snooping around, people are going to start asking questions, and they can't have that, right? And so they have to go through all of this stuff, this whole process, just so that no one finds out what they're doing, right? And so, it really does speak to, how far Gus is willing to go in order to get this done, right? And I did like this, I just thought this is Gus is nothing if not thorough, right? So he's going to do everything possible to the last, detail, to make sure that this all goes smoothly and no one is going to find out about it, right? And so that's just what this process is kind of showing us here again, is Gus's, willingness to kind of even maybe go too far to protect himself. And that's how he's been so successful in Breaking Bad, right? How he's been, totally undetected the whole way, is, how well he's able to hide it. So yeah, really great stuff here. And so this is the job that Mike's doing for him, obviously. And I guess Mike is going to see this out, and make sure that everything is going okay, right? So this is kind of his job now. I think he's kind of done with Madrigal. He's kind of shifting over now to helping Gus with this lab building, right? So then we see that Jimmy gets a call at his job there at CC Mobile. Of course, it's dead. No one in there. So he gets a call from the man regarding his mom's will that Jimmy put together for her, right? And so this actually turns into an emotional moment for Jimmy, as he actually knew who that lady was. And so, that, actually kind of got him there a little bit. And I thought in this scene, actually, because of, they're speaking about death, and he knew that the lady pretty well, I thought this might spark that little thing in him about Chuck, but we didn't actually end up seeing that. So I was a little bit surprised there. But Chuck did not come into this, little situation here, this little moment. And anyway, so this guy calls about a will, and it seems like a random call too, right? I mean, Jimmy's not expecting it or anything like that. And the man even asked Jimmy to help him out with it because he doesn't totally understand everything with it, right? And so he wants Jimmy's help, right, in interpreting what this will says. And he says, he'll even pay him a fee, right? He's talking about this fee, do you charge a flat rate or do you charge an hourly rate, right, to read this will? And I'm thinking, okay, Jimmy's going to take advantage. He's going to take the money from the guy, right, and pretend that he's still a lawyer. Surprisingly, he passes on it. He doesn't take that bait that this guy throws out about the fee, right? Which was surprising to me. I honestly, I did think in this moment that Jimmy was going to take advantage, like he usually does, right? That's just his character, right? But he doesn't take it, and he recommends the man to HHM, right? He says, they got a great department there at HHM for the wills, and you can go there and they'll help you. So a big step here. The old Jimmy definitely would have tried to con the guy a little bit, and in this case he recommends him to HHM, right? And so I think this does show though that he actually did care about this woman, right? I think that's what this shows here, because he's willing to recommend him to HHM instead of kind of taking advantage of him, right? So I think if this was another woman that he didn't know that well, maybe then, right? Maybe then he would have taken advantage. But I do like this where he's even on the phone and he hangs up the phone, I think, and he says, damn it, right? Damn it. So he knows he could have helped him if he wasn't suspended, and he would have been glad to, as well. So, just a kind of a tough moment, right, for Jimmy in this sense, because he's really helpless. He can't do anything to help him, right, and he wants to. So anyways, turns out it was the woman in the old commercial he made. So I didn't piece that together right away, but then he went home and put that little tape in there and saw her on the commercial, and it turns out that was the woman who died. So, definitely recognized her for sure. Like, when that commercial played, I'm like, oh, that's that woman. And so, that was interesting. So, anyways, just kind of showing us a little bit more of Jimmy and where his mind's at right now with all this stuff. So that was good. Then we see Kim asks Jimmy to lunch, right? And so this is where Kim's part, comes back, right? Plays a big part in this episode here. So she asks him to lunch and tells him about her pro bono work to Jimmy's surprise, right? So I did like this episode as well because Jimmy is finally telling her the truth about how he's not going to the therapist. He's moving forward from Chuck's death and everything. So he's being honest with her. And then Kim, in a couple scenes later, is being honest with Jimmy again. So it's been an interesting dynamic here the first few episodes, in that they've both been lying to each other essentially the whole time, in what they're doing and, what they're kind of, so they basically have their own lives during the day and then they come home at night and basically lie to each other, right? So in this episode, they started being honest with each other again. So that was, that was good, I guess. So anyways, Jimmy's surprised about the pro bonos. He didn't see that coming, right? And so she tells him that she has been offered the job to run the banking division at Schweikart. So pretty crazy stuff, right? And again, this was kind of alluded to in that earlier scene. So she says if she takes the job, then it will also give her the freedom to work on stuff she really wants to do, which is more pro bonos. Which, I don't know. I didn't see this, as Kim. I thought she was the kind of lawyer that would work for Mesa Verde and be happy with that. I didn't really see her as a pro bono lawyer, but maybe this is the route she's taking. And the last couple of pro bonos she's done, she's really kind of enjoyed it. And she says, I like it, right? We almost had a Breaking Bad moment there. I was so close and then it wasn't, but she says, what did she say? Walter's line, of course, maybe the biggest line of the show is, I liked it, I was good at it, right at the very end of Breaking Bad. And she said something like that. It was along the lines of that. It was, wasn't word for word like I said, but it was damn close, and I was like about to lose it, and then it wasn't. But anyways, so that was just kind of an interesting point there. But I think she said, I really like doing it or something like that, and I'm I'm good at it. I'm not sure, but anyways, it wasn't exactly word for word. Anyway, so she wants to do these more pro bonos, and joining Schweikart will let her do that, because what she's going to do is she's going to put the Mesa Verde case all on the associates, right? And so then she'll have more time to herself, which I'm not sure that Mesa Verde is going to be okay with. So I think she's still lying to Jimmy in a way still, though, because I think in her mind, I think she's kind of done with Mesa Verde. I don't know. I don't know how they'd feel about being pushed onto associates. I don't know. So we'll see. But anyway, so this whole conversation, right, this whole, opportunity would ruin the Wexler McGill dream for Jimmy, and it's still a dream for him, right? We saw even in last episode how he said at the end of it, I'm gonna start a firm with my partner. It's gonna be bigger and better, right? And so this dream is still definitely present for Jimmy, and this whole thing kind of defeats that dream, right? And so he actually, takes a moment. He walks away from the table there. He comes back, and he realizes it's the right thing to do. So he tells Kim to go for it, to take the job and, take the opportunity. But he does say in the same breath, he says, in 10 months, a lot can happen, right? So he's still holding out hope that she'll be free in 10 months to start up this firm again with him once his license is reinstated, right? So we'll have to see. But anyways, he definitely still wants this dream, and Kim doesn't really. She wants to take this opportunity. So again, maybe this is what splits them up finally. I don't know, right? We'll have to see. So then Jimmy goes to get his check from Howard, and sees that there are several empty cubicles, right, in the office. And so he asks Howard about it, and Howard says they're experiencing a setback, right, and the firm's reputation is really depleted right now, right. So HHM isn't in a good place, and neither is Howard right now. So, and I think that's also because of Chuck's death. But not all because, right? I think, there's definitely other reasons as well. But it doesn't seem like Howard has an answer, right? Has an answer or wants to do anything about it, right? So he's still sulking. He's still feeling really guilty, as we saw last episode. He had that kind of breakdown in the washroom that Jimmy witnessed. So anyway, so he just seems really down in the dumps. And Jimmy suddenly just kind of fires up Howard here. So he, suddenly just starts getting him fired up, right? He calls him, he even goes and calls him a shitty lawyer, right? And he's like, I just recommended a client to you guys, and you're here, sulking, he's like, grow up and stuff like this. And he even calls him a shitty lawyer, right? Crazy. So, that was going to get Howard, and Howard snaps. He says, fuck you, Jimmy, right? Fuck off, right? So Howard's kind of done with Jimmy at this point, of course. And Jimmy's, says, use that, right? Use that fire, and try to get this firm back on track, right? And so, I don't know. I mean, it's nice to see Jimmy somewhat caring about Howard, but again, is he actually caring about Howard in this scene? I don't know. I think he's just kind of using it as an excuse to kind of further offend Howard, like to call him a shitty lawyer. He's using it as an excuse, in the fact that he's, firing him up, right? So I don't know. Anyways, very kind of tense scene, and kind of funny as well. So then, this was hilarious, this part here. So Jimmy orders a pallet full of these temporary phones, right, from last episode that he sold. He orders a pallet full, and apparently it was like $4,000 that he spent on it too. So that was almost all of the money that he got from Chuck, right? So anyway, so he gets these temporary phones, and he says to the woman there who owns the spa, he says it's a side business, right? And she's like, I thought you were a lawyer. Right, and so she doesn't, obviously she's not updated with what's going on, but, and I didn't even know that he was still renting out the space in the back of her spa. I thought that was kind of done with, but anyways, and so he gets a bunch of these pallets of these temporary cell phones, so now he's going off to sell them again, and hopefully keep the money this time. So yeah, so this was kind of just a funny thing. And then we see that whole sequence where he's like dragging them into the back of the spa and all that stuff. So he's got to find somewhere to put them. So then maybe the most chilling scene of the episode, this one, is Gus goes and visits Hector in the hospital. And so he's still in a coma too, right? So we don't know if Hector actually hears any of this, right? Maybe he doesn't. But Gus is just kind of there, right? And he wants to speak to Hector, right? And I don't think, does Gus think that Hector hears this? Maybe, right? I think he thinks that there's a possibility, so that he's going to do it anyways, type of thing, right? And so this was a really chilling scene, and they're in the dark, and it was just a really, really well captured scene here. So Gus tells him a story about an animal who started eating his fruit plant as a child, right? So anyways, there was an elaborate story behind it, but basically the moral of the story is when he caught it, he let it live, and it had a broken leg too, it was in really bad shape, and he let it live and suffer instead of doing the merciful thing and killing it, right? And so, of course, this story, you don't get it right away, but when he gets to the kind of the punchline of the story, you get what it means, right? So this whole story that he tells mirrors exactly what he plans to do to Hector, right? And so his plan is, instead of mercifully killing it, which he could have killed Hector by now, let's be real. I mean, he has the doctor in his pocket, and he could definitely sneak in there and kill Hector. I mean, that could have been done by now. But instead, he's going to make him suffer and live throughout this thing after this coma, right? So he's going to do everything in his power to keep him alive so that he has to suffer, right? And obviously we know he has succeeded because in Breaking Bad, Hector's in a wheelchair for and ringing a bell for not for 5 seasons, but, for 5 seasons. We don't see him in all 5 seasons, but he is there. So we know he succeeds in this, and this was just a really chilling scene in seeing him kind of say this stuff to Hector. So at least we know his plan now with Hector, right? At least we know. And again, a lot of stuff with Breaking Bad is kind of coming in here now. We're getting closer, right? So we know, what kind of stuff that Gus was up to here with Hector for sure. So then we see the German men move in, right, to this kind of it's a huge warehouse type of thing, and they have houses kind of set in there, and then Mike, of course, is running the whole operation, so he gets a basketball net, a pool table, and all this stuff for these German men who are helping building this underground lab, right? And so it's good to see him having a bigger role now, right? I think he doesn't seem too happy, but I think he is happy with this job now and being, in charge of this whole thing and making sure it's running smoothly, right? It's a perfect job for Mike, right? And I think he's liking it. So great to see him having a bigger role now instead of just kind of being that security inspector at Madrigal. This is a little bit more up his alley. So I do enjoy that. And so he gets all the security hooked up and the living quarters up to standard here, and all the men move in. So I assume that maybe next episode we'll see a little bit of the groundbreaking maybe of this lab, right? So that would make sense. I'm not sure actually if they're doing a little bit of a time skip in between episodes here, because I also did see in the teaser, now I don't want to spoil too much, but it is a teaser. It's been released on the AMC YouTube channel, so it's not huge. But anyways, in the teaser, Hector actually wakes up from the coma, right? And he's awake. So I do think that they're going to have a little bit of a time skip in between this episode and next episode. I could be totally wrong, and Hector could just, randomly wake up. But that's what I think is going to happen. So maybe we'll see the underground lab actually being built, quite a bit further on, right? If we get a little bit of time, going by between episodes. I'm thinking maybe a month or something like that. I don't know. That just my guess. But anyways, really great to see Mike having a bigger role. So then this was the best part of the episode in my opinion. I loved it. So we got Jimmy, right? He wants to sell these temporary phones, but he remembers that these guys who mugged him the other night, what's going to stop them from mugging him again when he tries to sell them, right? So he goes to the sidewalk again to meet with these 3 boys who mugged him last episode. So he proposes that he will cut them in, right? He'll cut them in on his dealing as long as they don't mug him, right? So, he's pretty much paying them, and he says, I'm paying you for nothing, man. I'm just paying you to not mug me, right? And so, and let him sell his phones, right? And so, it seems like they're going to accept it after he explains it a little more, adds a little bit of reasoning, and then they ask him for all of his money, right? So he's offering them a hell of a deal, and now they want all of his money again, and the one kid pulls out a knife on him, right? And so Jimmy suddenly takes off running. I love this. He just takes off running when this kid pulls out this knife, right? And so he's running down the sidewalk. He goes down a little bit of an alleyway there from the three boys, and they're right on his tail, right? So he runs down this alley, reaches a wall that he can't climb, right? And it seems like the three boys have succeeded. They corner him, right? And the one kid says, "You got to be the dumbest guy I've ever met," or something like that. And they think they've won, but Jimmy had it planned, and he says, "You should have taken the deal." Right? And so then the two big guys show up with guns behind the kids. Really awesome, man. This was awesome. This is like Saul Goodman right here. This was really great. I loved it. So, a little bit of a twist here. The two guys show up behind them, and they're shit scared, right? Because of these two guys with guns when they, just have one knife, right? They're not quite up to par with them. So, anyways, so in the ending here, they take the boys to a trailer and actually hang them upside down like piñatas, and they're surrounded by actual piñatas, and that's the name of the episode. Really great job there bringing that back, of course. But anyways, so they're hanging like piñatas in this trailer, right? And Jimmy says, "You didn't know I had friends, did you?" Right? And so the boys are now, they're shit scared, right? Like, they just want to go. They're like, "Okay, I'm sorry, man," all this stuff. And that's exactly what Jimmy wanted, right? He wanted that fear in them, it just in the future so they wouldn't bother him, right? And so Jimmy says, "You will spread the word I am off limits," right? So the boys agree to that, right? And so it seems like Jimmy's getting everything he wants, right? They're following what he says. Then one of the men, of course it's Huel, by the way. But anyway, so Huel then is about to hit him, right, with a bat, and actually just stops, like, about an inch or two away from his face, right? Really, really close. The kid, probably shitting his pants by now, right? Because he's about to get hit by this baseball bat, right? And Jimmy says, "You get one warning, and that was it," right? That was your warning, that we stopped and didn't hit you in the head with that bat, right? So that's your warning, and that's it. And Jimmy walks out of the trailer there and leaves the three boys hanging. What an amazing ending to the episode here. Absolutely brilliant. This was just awesome. And it was great to see. I was clenching my fist. I'm like, yes! These three boys got what they deserved, and they got taught a lesson. And this is honestly Saul Goodman. I think, this is starting to come out here of Jimmy. So what a really great little end to this episode here for episode 6. So then, after that little end of the episode, it seems like Jimmy's got everything under control, and he's going to sell the mobile phones, the temporary phones, next episode, and, into the future. So, anyways, in terms of our rating for this one, I'm going to give it a 4.7 out of 5. I did really enjoy it. Great ending to the episode, like I just talked about. Really great. Kim's story is making more sense now, right? It's, kind of fitting in. We weren't sure exactly what was going on with her doing all these pro bonos and stuff, and now she's going to Schweiker and Coakley, right? So a lot of things were kind of, all over the place, and now in this episode, it kind of all connected back and making more sense. So that was really great. And Kim's arc is actually becoming a pretty big one in this season. So, she's kind of changed a lot in just the last 3 episodes. So really great to see that. No Nacho again in this episode. Have to keep saying that because I did predict it. I'm not sure if he's going to be in next episode. We'll have to see. But maybe. I mean, again, if I do a little bit of a time skip in between episodes here, a little bit of time passes, maybe a month or two, maybe that's again why we see Nacho. So it just makes a lot of sense to do it, because then you can have Hector wake up from the coma. You can have Nacho back. You can just have a lot of things. You can have Kim at her new job, right? And then, Underground Lab is being built. So there's just a lot of opportunity here to kind of skip an episode, but maybe not. Maybe they'll do that time skip in between season 4 and 5. I don't know. But anyways, that's why we watch every week, to see what they give us. So, for sure. And a nice flashback at the beginning, of course. Can't forget that. It was a great scene to start off the episode here, and gave us a little bit of preface for this episode in terms of Kim and Jimmy's relationship. And it was also great to see Michael McKean back for this episode. Even though we all hated Chuck, right? Or almost all of us hated Chuck. You got to remember, the actor, Michael McKean, did a really great job in portraying the character. So, really great stuff there. Favorite character for this one, I'm going to have to go with Jimmy. I mean, just that whole plan at the end of the episode and the way it was executed was amazing. It was really great. Bob Odenkirk doing an amazing job, as always. And it was really great. So, yeah, that'll do it pretty much. That is it. what is there to talk about with Jimmy, right? We all know what's going on with him. Anyway, so it looks like he's selling these temporary phones from now on for a little bit of extra cash on the side, and we'll have to see, what goes on with that. So, really cool. So, anyways, that'll just about do it for the review of Better Call Saul. Sorry if this one's a little bit long. I did kind of, go on a little bit. But anyways, thank you so much for watching this review this week for Better Call Saul, Season 4, Episode 6, titled Piñata. Really great one. So thank you so much for the support on the channel. Again, I do really, really appreciate it. I think we're at 175 subscribers or something like that now. So really, really do appreciate that. It's kind of crazy. So anyways, again, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next week for Better Call Saul, Season 4, Episode 7.
To shout out feeling lonely.